Hi everyone, I know a lot of you guys are curious about what happened with my Duriel runs. I had advertised this for a few days where I was going for this big 100 Duriel session on Sunday, featuring Condas and some other guys that he set up a team with. And this is the final result of all the materials that he had grinded. We had actually 120 Duriel runs because, yeah, some people overdid it a little bit with the grinding. And we went for it in one go. So I want to show you the results. To be honest, they are quite sad and it kind of like demotivate me a bit, but we have to keep going to get that Shaku, I guess. So here's my total results. I did some runs at the start on the Druid, like 24 runs or so. I just wanted to go until I get a Tempest Roar, and then I switched to the Rogue and just went further with this. And we did like roughly like 100 or close to 100 runs on the Rogue here. So total result was we got one Uber drop, which was Doombringer, which is a really good item. However, I already had one already, so not too useful unless I rip it on the way to Abattoir of Zir. I have a backup at least, I guess. But outside of that, nothing. I also didn't really get like an upgrade on my T-Bolt's Will. I still didn't really have like one that I'm really happy with. But okay, eventually we're gonna find a really good one, I hope. But you see here that most of the drops are actually like fairly equal. So, you know, there's like a bit of plus and minus here on the drops, and this is a rather small data set, but it looks like all of the items actually have similar chances to drop. T-Boss Will is a bit on the lower side here, but on the other hand, it's really high here during the Druid runs. So there are something like 10 items or something in the drop pool, I think, when you farm Duriel, or I don't know, like 8, and then the Uber Uniques, something like that. So there's a lot of items, and yeah, it turns out that it kind of evens out. There are some people that have like way more data than me. Obviously, you know, if I'm like organically hand farming all of this without duping and without viewer handouts and all that stuff, that takes forever to actually grind up all those Duriels. I spent basically like all week on that. I literally leveled an entire character from 1 to 100, doing nothing but Hell Titan Whispers basically for this. So yeah, it does take a while to farm up those Duriels. Previously, before the patch, we just had an update. It was like roughly an hour per Duriel, I would say, and then, okay, you can multiply this times 4 in a group. So 1 hour per 4 Duriels. And now they've actually buffed Living Steel drops yesterday, so that is kind of cool. And now we get 5 Living Steel per Living Steel chests. And if you have a really fast build, you can farm something like 2 chests in 15 minutes. So that's basically the shards side of Duriel in around 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, if you're pretty fast. And then the Whispers, maybe another 15, 20 minutes or so. So 1 Duriel per around 35 to 40 minutes is quite feasible now, actually. And then again, times 4 in a group. So that is actually kind of okay. If you do it solo, it will be quite a grind to try to get to Uber Uniques. But if you do it in a group with the times 4, it's actually not all too crazy. It seems like the overall Uber unique drop rate is around 2%. So whenever you do runs, then it's like 50 runs, 1 Uber unique is roughly what you can expect. In my case, I've done maybe a total of around 250 runs now or so. I've gotten exactly 4 drops, so I'm a bit on the low side. I have 2 Doombringers, as I mentioned. We have a Melted Heart of Selig that I just found last night, and I also have the Grandfather that I found at BlizzCon. Okay, that was rigged, of course, but yeah, I'm a bit on the lower side, I guess, with my RNG. And if you expect something like 40 minutes or so per Duriel, rather per 4 Duriels, or let's say 45 minutes because I actually have to run them a bit. That means that if you farm up 12.5 Duriels yourself, that will take you roughly 9.5 hours or so, and then you run them in a group. So you multiply it by times 4, you get 50 runs, and this is like the average to hit 1 Uber unique. So roughly every 10 hours of fast, efficient grinding, you could expect 1 Duriel Uber unique, roughly. Which is actually not really such a crazy number, I think, if you consider like how strong some of these items are. I think the main downside here is that you can never predict which ones you're gonna get, and it's a bit sad that, you know, you can't really target the one that you want, and you can get 2 copies of those Uber Uniques, and there's not even a point in having copies because they all roll perfect stats for some reason. But this is how it is now, I guess. So yeah, I wish that Blizzard was gonna reconsider a bit here and maybe add more options in the future with maybe other Uber bosses that also drop them, and maybe like only drop certain ones or something like that. But for now, this is how it goes. And this means that if you spend something like maybe 100 hours or so on Duriel grind with that pace, you could actually expect a relatively reasonable chance to get any of those Uber uniques that you want. So a Shaco or a Havarion or Doombringer or whatever you're trying to get. A specific one, I think, yeah, something like 50 to 100 hours is that kind of target you're going for in a group. So if you do it solo, of course, it will be almost times 40 amount of hours. So we're looking at like 200, 300 hours or something like that to actually get all of the Uber uniques, roughly plus minus. Of course, I'm going to keep you guys updated with more of my drops and more of my findings when I actually get to use those items. So for example, here, the Melted Heart of Selig, I'm actually quite excited to try this out. I think this is going to be quite interesting, even though it generally seems kind of weak. There are definitely some funny shenanigans you can do with this. For example, on barbs, where you have like tons of maximum resource and free regeneration and all that stuff, you can do some crazy things with your toughness. And even on a rogue, you have some funny little effects like inner sight. So that could be interesting to try out. But ultimately, I don't expect too much of Melted Heart of Selig right now. But maybe our 12 Seer will require you to just eventually become so omega tanky that you have to use this. We'll see. And it might actually have its place among the other Uber uniques. For now, it's just kind of like some very, very niche item. But okay, I'm really looking forward to hopefully eventually finding that Shaco and that Andariel as well. I think Andariel is also going to be a superb item for some builds that I really want to try out. But let's see how that goes. I'm going to keep you guys updated with more of my findings and more of the items that I actually try. So stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and see you guys next time.